back to the whiteboard. Thought we'd just follow on from our discussions that we've had the last 2 weeks. We went over the evolution of food, the carbohydrate obesity hypothesis, and now I thought we'd probably better go over metabolism, because you may or may not know what that is. So what is metabolism? That's basically what your body does, or how it breaks down, or what it does with the food that you put in it. All right. We have two hormones that we use for metabolism, or two main hormones anyway. One of them you've probably heard of, which would be insulin, and one you may not have heard of, which is glucagon. All right. So I thought I'd just break it down a little bit of how all that works. So nice little picture here of a cell. A cell has a door, and we either put stuff in or take stuff out. Insulin is the driver of what puts stuff in a cell. It could put fat in it, could put help it build up. But if we're talking, say, here for a fat cell, insulin's job is to store stuff. All right. Now, if we're eating a proper human diet, which would be like a high fat, high protein, minimal carb diet, these two will work pretty well together. Glucagon's job is to stop it going into the cell if we need it for energy, right? So glucagon basically tells the body to use stuff for energy. And insulin tells it what to put in the cell. So if insulin's high, glucagon doesn't work. And what makes insulin high is obviously carbohydrates. So if we put a lot of carbohydrates in, then insulin's going to push up because it has to do something with that. And when carbohydrates go into our body, they then turn into sugar or glucose. And then if glucagon's already used all of its glucose for energy of everything, then it has to store it. And it stores it in the form of fat. So it would turn into a triglyceride, and then insulin would start pushing that into that cell. Now, if we keep having that recur, so if we eat that carbohydrate for breakfast, and then we eat a little bit more for lunch, and then we eat a bit more for dinner, and then we eat a bit more for breakfast, and we keep going, insulin's going to stay high. Glucagon doesn't get much of a look in because insulin's more powerful. So glucagon will use what it can, but insulin's going to keep pumping into that cell. And then that's where we come up with insulin resistance. So you may have heard that term, and insulin resistance is the reason everybody's getting metabolically sick. And that's because it's pumping so much into the cell can't fit anymore, so it starts leaking stuff out. And that is what insulin resistant is, right? It's not really not listening to the insulin, it's just insulin's so high, we've got so much in that it's pumping in, and then we start leaking out of the cell. And then it has to start storing that fat in other places, in your muscle tissue, in your liver, in your heart tissue, and then that's when metabolic disease pops in. So key takeaway is, if we can keep our carbohydrates low and our protein and our fat high, then it's a more balanced system. Glucagon will use what it needs to do. Insulin doesn't have as much of the sugar to get rid of and to pump into a cell, so we can reverse all that stuff. That's it for today, guys.